To get started, and by the way, we're recording this, so I hope it's okay with everybody. I mentioned it to people, and so later I will post these readings on our YouTube channel. Imagine that the TIL is starting a little YouTube channel. Right. And so we'll be able to share some of these readings with everybody and with the people who weren't here, of course. So I wanted to, we're going to just go by alphabetical order by last name. So we're going to start with Cyrus, and I'll introduce each reader, and then they'll read, and then I'll introduce the next reader, and so on. So this year, Cyrus Cassells won the TIL Sergio Fraser Award for Best Translation of a Book for translating Francesc Parcercis's Still Life with Children. Cyrus is a 2019 Guggenheim Fellow and winner of the National Poetry Series, a Lambda Literary Award, a Lannan and NEA Fellowships, the William Carlos Williams Award, and 2 Pushcart Prizes. The author of 6 books of poetry and a tenured professor of English, Cyrus teaches in Texas State University's MFA program in creative writing. Cyrus?
Thanks so much, everyone. I'm actually in San Francisco. I have been away from Texas almost a year on leave in the Guggenheim Fellowship. Of course, I was really hoping to see everybody a couple weeks ago, but this is wonderful. So I'm going to read from the book that won the prize. Francesc Parcercis's is a wonderful, wonderful poet from Barcelona, Catalan, Spain. He's in his mid-70s. I have known him for 30-some years when I first went to Barcelona in the 80s. So I'm going to read a poem called Act of Gratitude, which is maybe my favorite of all of his poems. Act of Gratitude. Thank you, angel. Thank you, demons of the night. Thank you, winter, season in which the heart burns arid tree trunks of desire. Thank you, bracing cold light, nocturnal water. Thank you, midnight bile, laurel of morning, hoopoe of dawn, for what's odd, unexpected, wild, for evil and pain. Thank you for the sum of what we are and are not, for all we avoid and all we crave. Thanks for the lush words, love and silver, for yourself and myself. Thank you for yes and for no, for the ability to give thanks and for rendering them unnecessary. Thanks for fear, for bread and oil, for the nighttime. Thank you for lovemaking at the break of day, for the coin discovered on the ground, for your hand on my cheek, the gush of the fountain. Thank you for your eyes and lips, for crying out my name with joy. Many thanks, death, for your existence, for making all these things more vivid inside me, so very yours, so beautiful, brimming, and complete.
Wow.
I'm going to read you the Catalan of that one, and then I'll read a couple more in English. Acció de gràcies. Gràcies, àngel. Gràcies, dimonis de la nit. Gràcies, hivern del cor on cremen els troncs sexta del sig. Gràcies, llum del fred, nit de les aigües. Gràcies, el dia viliós de mitjanit. Llor de la matinada, puput de l'alba. Per allò diferent, inesperat, esquerp. Pel dolor i per mal, gràcies. Per tot el que no són i el que no són, però que evitem o que volem, gràcies per tu i per mi, per la paraula perdó, argent, amor, gràcies per sí i per no, per poder dar-te desgràcies i perquè no calgui fer-ho, gràcies per la por, per pa, per l'oli, gràcies per la nit, gràcies per l'amor de matinada, per la moneda que trobo maltera, per l'aigua de la font pela teva mão de muito lagalta. Gracias por teus ois e pelos teus lábios. Gracias por criar a joia el meu nome. Gracias, morte, porque existeixes e fa que eu que es segui ara ton viu and dens de mi e segui bel play rodo teo. So I read that for those of you who've never heard Catalan, and a lot of people don't know there are 4 languages in Spain, right? And unfortunately, when Franco came to power in 1939, he banned the Catalan language from public use. So, and that situation lasted for several decades there. So to kind of appeal to my sense of justice as an African-American poet, to learn a banished language, an imperiled language there. Here's another one of Francesc Parceris's poems. It's just called Shave. Observe yourself in the mirror, unchanged yet strange, still shaggy with sleep, startled at seeing your likeness. These wrinkles, these graying temples that you've already accepted gracefully. Affable guest who showed up so suddenly that you can't quite recall their initial appearance, are emblems of the shameless price required for this fictitious intimacy with the body. And now begin to shave. The blade, once quick and cold, no longer glides taut across your skin like the pleasant lickety-split friction of youthful skis. You're forced to stretch your flabby cheek with your fingers. Don't despair. Perhaps if you're shrewd and willfully avoid the shameful mark of a nick, you'll forget your alliance with your body has already begun to dissolve. Just a couple more, thank you. Here's a poem. Francesc does a lot of beautiful retellings of classical mythology. This one is Calypso. For 7 years, or was it 5, the divine nymph plied him with forgetfulness, delicacies, shared passion. Near Calypso's grotto, cypresses and alders grew, a grapevine for fashioning luxuriant wine, all that tantalizes men. A truism lost on the nymph, not even on an island adorned with caves, in the arms of a supernal lover, can a mere mortal endure a wearying eternity of youth and beauty, devoid of what men prize most, elusive memory, unattainable desire.
Wow, thanks.
This one's called Dogs. Keen trespassers trampling flower beds. They're a pack of mangy dogs. Look at them, cold, moderate. Nothing curbs their roaming. Not even this band of poets, also striving to make meaning of life's shame. Blind, tumble down, tick bedeviled, yet they still sniff with muffled fury at the old she-dog, tenant of this yard. But what begs to us binds us to them, shameless, loyal, reviled. Beasts that, like us, mount furious or half-hearted assault against love's insanity, supreme power upending and redeeming them in the same breath. Let's see, just one more. Oh, this is a tough one. It's just called Then Anachores. I think he was thinking of Bosnia when he wrote this. Then with her hands, she'd crown her son's head. Then with her arms, she'd embrace him. Then with her fingers, she'd pluck out his eyes. Then with her teeth, she'd gnaw his liver. Then with motherly claws, she'd shred his memories. Then with her nipples, she'd nourish him on the milk of hatred. Then with her tongue, she'd insist, Lord, Lord, I'm only doing this for love, because you pledged that this bread is your body, and this wine your blood. And
Very nice.
yeah, I think it's a powerful piece here. And this is just the last poem. It's just a suitor called Portrait of the Poet. It's a little winter imagery for Sergio there. Portrait of the Poet. Freezing pipes, icicles tapering from the eaves, in the blizzard's howling wind. After a long bout of darkness, it's a minor blessing to close your book, to snuff out the table candle, and under the glow of the fireplace, to nestle in bed, soundlessly, never stirring the young body by your side, dozing in all its purity. Blanket buried, close your lids, reenact this not uncommon day. Relish this tiny, elating moment that ennobles everything as you cup her sighing breast, your face lost and tangled among her hair's fluent, soft strands. Will death be this way? Welcome, like this drowsiness you succumb to, this sensation of sheer mildness, without reproach or lament, this uncluttered gratitude for life's hard to measure gifts. Will it be like this, that on our way to darkness, we'll encounter light? Thank you.
That's lovely.
Bravo, that was great, Cyrus.
Thanks so much.
Really well done.
Thank you.
Bravo, bravo.
So our next reader, Emmy Perez, is the 2020 Texas Poet Laureate, co-founder of Poets Against Walls, and a member of the Macondo Writers Workshop, the author of several books of poetry, including With the River on Our Face and Solstice. Emmy received poetry fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and Canto Mundo. She's a professor of creative writing at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, where she also serves as Associate Director of the Center for Mexican American Studies. Emmy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sergio, for putting this together. Really nice to see everybody here. Thank you, everyone, for your time to be here today. And thank you to Carmen Tafoya for all of your service the past 2 years. It was great to see you here in the Valley last year. So thank you. I'm going to read 3 pieces from my latest book, With the River on Our Face. The first one is the very first piece in the collection. And it's you. It is you. I know it's you. It's you and you and you. Not one, you. You in the bee, you in the leaves bitten, you in the bitten leaves, you in the holes in the bitten leaves, in the absences in the leaves, you in the absences of the leaves of the leaving, you in the absences, you here. You in the acrylic smell of carrizo, in the wind, in the tree trunk, you in the red ants in the dirt dome, you if I look up, you if I look down. If I sit on the tree trunk and feel the earth rumbling below through the roots because the wind and river water stir the roots to stir below and below, somewhere deep beneath, then I know that it is you and you are earth and the earth is nothing more than you. And you are the dragonfly with dotted wings, you flying into the leaves, the branches, the upright branches, upright. You are upright. You in the spaces between the shadows of the trees on this dirt road, you in the shadows and spaces, in the shadows and snowflake spaces, in the branch shade, you in the burnt sugar depths, you. 30 hawks flying over the river, earth cupping water, wind blowing river in the opposite direction, sun lit up river, sun white silvers the river. Is this what it's like to feel you as water? Carrizo swaying water, struggling upstream in the sun. Is that you in the 1,000 silver rivers? What I meant to say is that a long-billed thrasher didn't fly away. What I meant to say is that I'm not you, I'm not you. I don't mean to suggest that we're the same, we're not. That's why I like you. It's vampiric the way the mosquitoes bite. It's vampiric the way they find and bite only me, it seems. It's vampiric the way that I am thinking about you. A braid of berries spat out with seeds and chapulines, scat out seeds and chapulines. And I smelled the pile of bobcat scat, and walked over chalky gray feathers, chalky gray feathered mouse, mouse like scat, mouse transformed into shit. Feathery feathers, and it leaves a chalk stain, an outline of a chalk stain, and then a turquoise dragonfly flew right over my head. Red dragonfly, red cardinals, red damsel, red ruby spot, chachalaka, chachalaka. Tree branch on the road, thought it was an indigo. Tree branch in the road, thought it was an indigo. Tree branch in the road, I thought it was an indigo snake. Whole rats flattened out. Yes, whole rats, whole little cotton rats. What I forgot to say is that violence passed there, blood spilled there, blood spilled here. Red dragonfly, little hawks, little jacal, little mud house, blood spilled there. I said violence, violence happened here. A pile of seed berries gone straight through a coyote, javelina, fox, raccoon. I wanted expired, expelled, expired, expelled. I want earth to expire it and extol something new. You, 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 you.
Wow, awesome.
So this next piece, I mean, like the previous one, is quite long, so I'm only going to read half of it. It's called El Paso, El Valle. So about 20 years ago, I moved to El Paso. It's where my mom is from. My mom is from Isleta, like Sergio. Her father's family had lived there since it was part of Mexico. Her mother was from Chihuahua, from Mata Ortiz. Her family's from Norogachi. So this is about half of it. That's about El Paso. I'm going to skip. I'm going to read the part about where I live now in El Valle. I've lived in El Valle now in the Rio Grande Valley for, I think it's been 14 years. El Paso that is not El Valle and is El Valle. El Valle and all the cities where papis live. El Valle, una herida abierta, palabras de gloria en Saldúa. El Valle that is not mine. El Paso that is not mine. I don't want anything to be mine. El Valle of yellow kiskities and green blue river. El Valle where Agent Orange was born in a factory planted in the barrio. DDT and arsenic still in the soil and blood. El Valle where I'm learning how to love astonished. El Valle of brand new border walls, concrete, rebar, comfort for those who have never touched this river water. El Valle, where we are witnesses with all the senses, sometimes the words swallowed in helicopters and hurricanes. El Valle of green parakeets on 10th Street, bobcats and ghosts of ocelots in the Monte by Boca Chica, where the river cools blue herons, children and fisher women and men as it joins the Gulf. Spring arrives anytime there's a splash of rain with sun, and still a pronounced flowering in February, March. Cacti blooming fuchsia flowers near salt water, and Texas tortoise so fucking ancient at Laguna Atascosa, walking in wind as we walk in wind in spring, thinking about desire, Celia Cruz, and female and male cardinals in winter. El Valle, where my toronjas are organic and the big red ants consume every last peach white bit of pulp, when stray beautiful ones fall to dirt already with the suck hole for the birds. El Valle, where each toronja in my backyard is a miracle of life. El Valle, where I'm teachable like people like you who live their lives in order to love. Because this is why many of us live our lives, but we don't stop working to notice. Quote, pero yo ya no soy yo, ni mi casa es ya mi casa, en El Paso, en El Valle, everywhere. So that last quote is by Garcia Lorca, the one in Spanish.
Good.
Bravo.
Excellent. Lovely.
Okay, I think I'm going to just share, thank you. I'm going to share just one more piece. I wanted to read a piece that's kind of unpolished, but then when Sergio said it's going to be on the internet, I said, okay, I better just read the more polished pieces. this is also from the same collection. And it's such a beautiful spring day outside. I'm sure many of you are experiencing the beauty from your windows right now and wishing you could be outside. And so I'm thinking of that as I write this. Also just the complexity of our lives. Staying in the flood. Why the Tom spraying the screen window? Why flood water left over from Hurricane Alex, a spring after last summer, weed seed sprouting downriver? Why the woodpeckers off and on wing paws causing vertigo? Why confuse herons with egrets? Why the sap stains like accidents? Why the Border Patrol woman in a blue truck with camper big enough to haul livestock? Why the anacahuita flowers? Why one giant swallowtail butterfly? Why the debris of retama flowers gathering on asphalt edges like the path of hair under your belly button or a path of marigold petals welcoming the dead home? And why the busted up nopal like a bullet target or a just married sign in April strung with tecate cans hitched to an El Camino? Why is it still blooming yellow roses? Thank you very much.
Bravo. Thank you, Emmy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was terrific. To our next reader, J.L. Powers, is the author of many award-winning children's and YA books, including The Thing Called the Future, winner of the Patterson Prize for Books for Young People and the TIL's Best Young Adult Book Award. She launched Catalyst Press in 2017 to publish African writers and African-themed books. She has an MFA in writing from the University of Texas at El Paso and 2 master's degrees in African history from the State University of New York at Albany and Stanford University. Jessica?
Thank you. So I'm going to read today from my most recent novel, Underwater, which is a coming-of-age novel set in post-apartheid South Africa. And it deals with xenophobic violence towards immigrants in South Africa, as well as, ongoing issues related to apartheid and the post-apartheid world in South Africa. And growing up in El Paso, Texas, during, the El Salvadoran refugee crisis, and then the, post that, the 90s and early 2000s, and then kind of stumbling into African history, both as a scholar, but then as a person who lived there and studied Zulu. I find the parallels to be kind of astonishing, while very different at the same time. And so in many ways, I felt like I was exploring a lot of issues that are extremely pertinent to Americans, even while setting it in this world that's really different. There's a lot of Zulu in here that's not translated, but I think is apparent as I read, and in context is similar. But if you catch any words that you want me to define later, I'm happy to. Also, it's set in Mbali Township, a township that I lived in while I was studying Zulu. And Mbali means flower, and townships were the areas reserved for Blacks only, or people of mixed race, known as colored, or Asian descent, like Indians and others. And they were delineated by ethnicity very specifically. But they were always given these, names that made them sound beautiful, even though they were poverty stricken. And so Mbali means flower, and it's a well-known township outside of Pietermaritzburg, South Africa. So I'm going to read 2 chapters. They're very short. Chapter 1, 3 years ago. I don't know how or when the Amadlozi choose someone, if you are destined from birth, or if at some point when you are growing, they notice something, they point to it, they say, there, right there, that one. She is meant for us. She will be our voice to the people. Chosen. Chosen means you don't choose. Somebody else chooses for you. In this case, all the people who come before you, your ancestors, your mothers, fathers, grandmothers, and grandfathers, all the greats backing up for all of time to the beginning of earth. They will not give up until you answer. And your answer must be yes, or you will go crazy. Mina, I was chosen 3 years ago. Mama was dying of the disease of these days. A neighbor sent a witch to curse us. A man was stalking me, and through all of that, they came. They spoke. Hamba, they said, Hamba. They spoke the same word over and over until I obeyed, until I started walking, not in any particular direction, just wherever they said to go, here, there, a circuitous journey that finally led me right back to my home here in Mbali, the place of flowers. They led me to the mountains. I scaled boulders, slipped on icy slopes, froze fingers. They led me deep inside a bowl of sandstone rock that looked as though only the Lord of the skies could live there in its cold, barren beauty. I soaked in its silence until they led me out again. They led me into the forest. I sat at the foot of a tree for days, waiting. I didn't even know what I was waiting for, but then the tree spoke, not with human voices, but something deeper that I felt through the earth and the trunk and the trees. They told me which plants could heal bronchitis, which could give the sick an appetite, which could cure depression and loneliness. I gathered winter herbs, crushed and dried them, and stored them in bags that hung from the belt slung around my waist. And then they led me to the river, the Tukela. It was swollen with spring rains, the waters choppy, angry. I sat on the edge, knowing I could not cross. I do not know how to swim, and what about the crocodiles? This is what I told Mkulu, the ancestor who first called me, the one who spoke to me more than any other. I imagined myself flailing around, sucked under, water filling my lungs, choking me, perhaps a crocodile grabbing me with its powerful teeth and making a meal of me. Step into the water, Mkulu said. I sat very still in disbelief. Go into the water, he said. I will drown, I said. You will not drown. Tiny drops of water flicked up from the swirling rapids and rained down on me. A giant rapid swooshed directly toward me and drenched me. I retreated. It was almost as if the longer I sat there, the angrier the water grew. And then it was swelling and growing, overflowing its banks, little rivulets reaching me where I stood. Go into the water, he said. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared that this might be the way I die. That after burying Mama, after leaving Gogo and Z behind for this journey, that I might be saying goodbye forever. That my crazy, rabid ancestors were actually out to kill me. A snorting, shuffling sound from behind, hot breath on my ankles, a crocodile lumbering toward the water, toward me. Dear God, hopefully it isn't hungry, I prayed. I hoped it wouldn't follow me into the water, because that was where I was going, even if I didn't want to. The water was ice cold. Bumps sprang up all over my skin. The crocodile let loose a long, low growl. I was in as deep as my waist, hesitating. You didn't have to send a crocodile to push me in, Mkulu. It opened its mouth, snapped its teeth. Or maybe you did. I wanted to believe I wasn't afraid of death. After all, I had seen my mama cross the river and join the Amadlozi on the other side. The ancestors, so numerous they were like a herd of black and white striped Amadube crossing the plains. They welcomed her with joyous cries. My very bones were certain of this truth, that death is just the next thing after this thing. But still, Mkulu, I said, as the crocodile nudged me deeper into the watery depths. I'm not ready to die. Chapter 2, Promise. My grandmother Gogo's voice is in my head even before Z throws the first handful of dirt on her grave. Don't forget your promise, Kosi. Don't forget. Dust chokes my throat as I turn away. A speck of dirt flies into my eye and I rub until it's raw. Tears drip down my cheeks. Even the woman keening or the call and response of the others in the crowd, mourning the loss of my grandmother, can't drown out her voice. The priest in his black robe stands in front of her grave, leading the people in prayer, and still I hear her voice over the ancient words of the church. Chant mourners, you promised, Kosi. You promised. Don't forget. It's true. Before she died, I promised Gogo exactly 2 things. They seemed small at the time. If I'd known what it meant to make those promises, I would have kept my mouth shut. But I said yes, and now I can't back out. The dead have access to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They hound me with their commands. Do this, do that, go there, fetch that. And Gogo's dead now, so I have no escape. She will harass me until I do what I said I would do. I take my sister Z's hand. She looks up at me, total trust reflected back in her eyes. Z's 9. I'm only 17, but I'm all she has left. Mama dead for 3 years and Gogo 3 days now. Baba has never been involved in our lives, even less so after Mama passed. Okay, Gogo. I'll keep my promises. I'll keep them, even if it kills me. Those are the first 2 chapters.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow, that was great.
Excellent. Very nice.
That
Very
was terrific. Thank you, Jessica.
Bravo, bravo.
Nice. Jessica, do you live in El Paso right now?
I do not. I live in Pacifica, California, so I'm Cesar. I'm not far from, or Cyrus, sorry. I'm not far from you in San Francisco, but my parents still live in El Paso, and I also work for Cinco Puntos Press, so I go there regularly.
Good. I love Pacifica. It's beautiful.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to continue on. Ire'ne Lara Silva is the author of 3 poetry collections, Furia, Blood Sugar Canto, and Cucacali, House of Song, as well as the short story collection, Flesh to Bone, which won the Premio Aztlán Literary Prize. Ire'ne received a NALAC Fund for the Arts Grant, the Alfredo Cisneros del Moral Award, and the Gloria Anzaldúa Milagro Award. Her poems have appeared in the New York Times, Acentos Review, Pilgrimage, Yellow Medicine Review, and the Weight of Edition, an anthology of Texas poetry. Here you are. You're next, Ire'ne.
Gracias. So can everyone hear me, see me? Yes? Okay, I want to make sure. So I took too long to figure out, hit the unmute button, because I was going to beg Emmy to read her new piece, to read the rough piece. And yeah, I took too long. But that made me want to read a new rough piece. So I will end up reading from Cucacali, but I'm going to start off with the rough new piece, just because I want to hear it out loud. And sometimes we need the new stuff. So this is actually a flash fiction piece called In This Dream of Blue Horses, which was inspired by a science article that I read that was fascinating because it argued, I had always learned that horses were brought over by the Spanish. But it turns out that horses actually originated in the Americas and then traveled to Asia and Europe and died out here and then were brought back. And genetically, if you look at the horses that are here, they are indistinguishable from the original horses. And so this article was arguing that horses should be, that these Mustangs, especially that are in the wild, should be considered native species and protected that way. But it was fascinating. So that led to this piece. In this dream of blue horses, there are no roads, only undulating land in every direction, only bodies beautiful and blue and lit by the moon, only the slight coolness that night brings after the heat of the day, only our sister wind, our brother wind, that both blow against us and carry us along. We were not born here, but our mothers' mothers' mothers called this land their home. The bones of our ancestors do not live in the first few feet of earth under our hooves, but listen close. Listen close and you can hear the thundering of their hooves, their bones a few feet deeper. Only a few feet deeper, our mothers' mothers' mothers called this land their home. And the land says, oh, my long-lost, long-legged children, and we, the long-lost, long-legged children, whimper, mother, mother, mother to the earth. In this dream of blue horses, we are returned to the land of our ancestors. We are wild again, but then did we ever lose our wildness? We were only waiting, and our children born free do not remember captivity. They would call us feral, but we were never truly domesticated. We only bided our time. None of us had to remember freedom or our stories or the structure of our families. The knowledge was never taken from us. We were only prisoners to the bit and the bridle and the saddle and the spur. But our spirits were never anything but free. And even then we dreamed and we dreamed and we ran and we ran. In this dream of blue horses, in this dream that is our living, our breathing, our being, we run as one. All our bodies, all our hooves, all our hearts, all our flared nostrils, all the stretch and coil of the meat and muscle of us made one, made a river under the light of the rising moon and the waning sun. This was always our land. This was always our freedom. This was always our strength. We thunder. We thunder, we thunder.
Wow.
Wow, that's
That's a rough.
terrific.
That's a brand new piece, brand new.
Excellent.
But I thought it worked because it fits in with the theme of Cuicacali, which is about indigeneity and how we reclaim it and where we're from and what land we call ours and how we live in the world as communities without borders and without walls. So thought that might work. I'll share a couple pieces from Cuicacali, which I just love reading. So we have to include a love poem because we just do. So this one, actually a few people have heard the story, but this one was actually inspired by a road trip I took with my best friend and her husband. And you know how you get into these long, winding conversations when you're in a car with people for hours. And we somehow the subject came up of first loves. And so I was talking about my first love at 17, and my best friend was talking about hers at 16. And then her husband was like, he was so serious too. He was like, I was 5. I was 5 when I had my first love. And you know, we laughed at him because we thought it was funny. But it was so sweet because he just said, you know, I loved her. I thought he would have a house and dogs and kids and grow old, and that he was heartbroken. And so, you know, we ended up going to this event, to a reading, and had dinner and everything else. And it wasn't until probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning that I started writing this poem instead of working on the deadline I was supposed to be working on. But this is a poem called What I Remembered Yesterday, about my first love at 6. What I remembered yesterday. At 6, I was the loner kid, the migrant kid following the harvest seasons in Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. We moved every few months, changing schools, changing homes. I was the poor kid, the dark brown kid, the only girl with short hair and pants. I was the quiet kid who stared at clouds and blades of grass, who walked the perimeter of the schoolyard as if plotting escape, a child in pain with no words for that pain. Ileana was one of the pretty girls, the girls who would grow up to become cheerleaders. Ileana with the pretty gold skin, only slightly lighter than her light brown hair. Ileana with eyes blacker than mine. I don't know what she did or said, but one day the cheerleaders-to-be sent her sprawling into the dirt and turned away. I don't remember if I helped her or if, finding herself alone, she sought me out. But from one moment to another, I went from alone to not alone. Impossible that we had ever been apart. Little soulmate, mirror reflection, inseparable. We had one shadow. We spent every second of her exile breathing the same air, staring at the same clouds, holding the same wildflowers. She held my hand. I loved her with all the passion of my 6-year-old heart. That should be funny, but it isn't, because the passion of my 6-year-old heart was not the passion of my 17-year-old heart, or my 21-year-old heart, or my heart at any other point. At 6, a heart is infinite, devoid of want, devoid of selfishness, devoid of games, devoid of possession, devoid of armor. At 6, a heart is infinite. I don't remember time. Was it weeks, months? I only remember I had no warning. One day to the next, her exile ended. The cheerleaders-to-be took her back. I waited for her, but she never returned to our meeting place. I watched to see if she'd turn and catch my eye and smile her quiet smile, but she never did. Almost 40 years later, I wonder, did it begin then? This lifelong love of heartbreak songs, betrayal songs, abandonment songs, unrequited songs. My 6-year-old voice didn't know the songs I would learn later. Maybe I was 15 or 16 or 17 when that song found me. The song I didn't know would follow me always. The song I know no matter how many years pass without singing it. The song I've known late, early, tired, drunk, sober, heart silent, and heart peeling. Probablemente ya de mí te has olvidado, y mientras tanto yo te seguiré esperando. Yesterday, I remembered the 6-year-old me and my 6-year-old heart, and I remembered what I'd forgotten. The 6-year-old lives in me still, the 6-year-old in me that waits and waits and is still waiting.
Wow.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Terrific.
Gracias. Okay, so one last thing. I'm going to read two sections of the very long poem that's at the end of the book. So Cuicacali literally translates to House of Song. And I wanted to write a very long poem that captured the time between the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo to now. So roughly 175 years, stuffed into 11 pages of poetry. And I also wanted to meditate on the idea of song and how song keeps us and holds us. So this is I think maybe, part 1 and part 4, I think, of Cuicacali. 1, body of song. Never say we did not speak. Our tongue is an infinite tongue, strong in its ignorance of your American time. Its roots reaching deep into the earth where sunlight and the memory of sunlight live in the darkness. There are songs breathing in our words. There are songs breathing in the sunlight. There are songs breathing in the earth. Our hands are breathing with songs. We are inhabitants of a border, inhabited by a border. We say Tejanos, we say Mexicanos, we say Mexicans from this side, we say Mexicans from that side, we say Mexican Americans, we say Chicanos, Chicanos, Chicanexes, we say Tex-Mex, we say indigenous. Some of us know the names, Kickapoo, Apache, Comanche. Some of us know, many do not, but we know, we know. We say here, we say they, we say there, we say there is no line, we say, we mean us, the people. We mean we who belong to this land, to all our lands. We mean we, our hands working the soil. We mean we, our feet dancing on this earth. We, keeping it turning. We mean we, our blood spilled here. We mean we, equal parts earth and sun. 4, bones of song. You ask if the bones are heavy. Bones are always heavy. They bear the weight of a life, the weight of all the lives that came before them and the lives that followed. They bear the weight of blood and muscle and sinew, of grief and work and loss and time. Falfurrias, Brooks County, Texas. The words mass and grave live in the nebulous place where we put all the words we must keep at a distance so that we can breathe and sleep and live, so that we can work, so that we can hope. The distance at which you keep nightmares, the distance at which you keep history, the distance at which you keep the stories that all these words invoke. Lynching, train car, Texas Ranger, separation, repatriation, border wall, death, murder, death, murder, death, and the word that is poison, forget. If remembering was not important, the bones would not remain. Bones would rot and fall away like flesh. Bones would liquefy, dry, and flake away. Bones would be the consistency of flower petals and dragonfly wings. Bones would bear no stories, no names, bear no essence. Bones would bend and sway as inconsequential things do. Gracias.
Wow.
Bravo.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Ire'ne, that was great.
Those sections are from what book, Ire'ne?
It's from, here we go, Cuicacali. So
Cuicacali.
my most recent one.
Cuicacali. Okay.
House
good.
of Song.
Beautiful.
That's
Beautiful.
great. Thank you very much. So our last reader, Octavio Solis, has written more than 20 plays, and as well as a great memoir, Retablos, Stories from a Life Lived Along the Border. His latest play, Quijote Nuevo, will be featured at the Roundhouse Theater in Bethesda in September. His plays have been produced in theaters across the country, including the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the California Shakespeare Theater, the Yale Repertory Theater, Denver Center for the Performing Arts, the Magic Theater, and El Teatro Campesino. Octavio received the United States Artist Fellowship and the Penn Center USA Award for Drama. Octavio, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be reading from my book, Retablos. It's the only book of prose I have, rather than to share some excerpts from my plays, because it's just easier. I have to say, though, before I start, how deeply honored I am to be among this company of writers. It's the work I have heard today, this afternoon, is just astonishing. It's really powerful, and I'm very moved to be listed among these new inductees. So thank you very much for sharing, and also to be in this wonderful murderer's row of writers, all with Texas in their bones. It's just really an honor, so thank you. I'm going to read one called El Mero Mero. It's a sort of story, and so I'll just get to it. El Mero Mero. What the hell is a man anyway? I had a clearer sense of what that whole deal meant when I was a little mocoso, when everyone was older and taller and deeper voiced than me and kept the modelo negro at arm's length. But now I'm growing some fine hair on my lip and my balls, my voice is dropping, and my flared jeans are all high waters. I'm an easy target for my buds at the schoolyard. When's the flood coming, ese? It doesn't help that over my platform shoes, I'm often wearing white tube socks. Girls are kind of not into that. Clearly, I'm missing something. But my jefe, my old man, my father, he's a man. He's got the forearms to prove it. He's modeled his squint after Charles Bronson and put spicier chile on his eggs than anyone in our house. He busts his ass slinging burgers over spitting grease 9 hours a day for us and doesn't ever complain about it. Then he comes home a drained man, dropping all the trappings of his day into the top drawer of his dresser before he drags himself into the shower. That's where all the talismans of manhood are kept. Right now, he's not home. My mother is snoring on the couch while the 6 o'clock news blasts out of the Magnavox. Everyone else is either out or out of sight. It's like some muse of my adolescence is saying, "Here's your chance, baboso." Peering into his drawer, I take inventory of the tokens that make Dad, Dad. His tin of pomada de la campana, some cologne in a boot-shaped bottle, shoe polish for his work Oxfords, a few ragged pesos, tangles of man bracelets, old watches and chains, random pens collected from various customers, old keys, a pack of Camels, an engraved silver lighter, and a single copper-headed bullet. These are the trinkets of my dad's personal mythology, all jumbled together with the carelessness of a working man. Recalling how he applies the pomada on his friar grease burns, I rub some on my hands and douse my neck and face with his cologne, which burns into my raw pimples. I slick my hair back with his hair cream. Then I put the cross that he keeps on a gold chain around my neck, unbuttoning my paisley shirt down to my sternum so it shows. Then try on one of his dead watches. Finally, I look at the structure of my new self in the mirror. El mero mero, the real. And mero mero slinks out of the house and goes around to that derelict field where the cotton used to grow to shoulder height. He leans against the wall by the sere clumps of tumbleweed and breathes in his newfound musk. He looks down at the cross, catching the sundown light. He rattles the bracelet around his skinny wrist as he raises a cigarette to his lips and lights it with his beautiful lighter. Oh, the sound of that lighter. Suppressing a cough, he looks out toward the blue-gray silhouette of the mountains in Ciudad Juarez, where he imagines all the real men of the world are nodding their somber heads in unison at the spectacle of his arrival. El mero mero. A group of 3 slouchy vatos in white t-shirts and baggy khakis, old enough to drive a car but not old enough to own one, strolled down the street on their way to someplace better than where they were. El mero mero turns his gaze their way, and they must feel it, because one of them looks right back at him and sneers, "¿Qué ves, puto?" And mero mero looks away, and that's when he hears them laughing. Not even very loud, not even with much derision, just the kind of laughter that diminishes a guy, the kind of laughing that flattens the sunset and puts it out of reach and causes all the fine hairs of a person like El Mero Mero to wish themselves onto some other body, not his. Little flecks of shame and anger swarm over him, and he doesn't even finish the camel. And Mero Mero knows he'll slink back inside and put his old man's bracelet and cross, his crumpled pack of cigs and silver lighter back in the drawer, and he'll wash off the pomada and cologne in the shower, along with everything that makes him El Mero Mero. Except that in the little pocket of my high water flared jeans that I'll wear for another humiliating month, in a year of humiliating months, I'll keep a shiny copper-headed bullet for the day when I understand the real real. So there's that one.
Wow. I am glad I'm recording this.
Bravo. Bravo.
Here's another one. This is the first time I've read this one before. I've been embarrassed about it, but I had a company in San Francisco called Word for Word. They're a marvelous company. They perform works of fiction, short works of fiction, word for word, without cutting or deleting or adapting any text. They do it as written, and they perform it fully staged with lights, sets, costumes, and it's wondrous. It's really a wonder to behold. And they've done authors living and dead, contemporary and ancient as well. And I was honored to have them stage some of my stories. And this was one of them. And I was surprised that it worked. So I'm going to read it right away. It's a short one. It's called El Judío. I don't even know what Judío means. I thought it was his name. El Judío, my dad would say to my mom. Ahí viene el Judío. Here comes the Jew. But what is a Jew? I never saw one before. I never heard that word before except in reference to Christ, King of the Jews. I thought it meant he was like Jesus. 3 of my friends are named Jesus, and they aren't half as good as the one in the Bible by a long shot. In fact, one of them shoots birds out of the mimosa trees with his BB gun for the pleasure of it, and that seems completely the opposite of Jesus. But something about the way my parents say the word, El Judío, makes him seem special and sanctified, a man with the kind of spiritual dimension that demands his name be uttered in hushed tones. The Jew is coming today. Have you got enough for the Jew? El Judío is at the door. One morning, I'm watching cartoons on the TV, and the picture is flipping like crazy, and the vertical hold doesn't work, and my bladder is telling me to march in place before I pee myself in my pajamas. I hear a knock on the door, and I open it. Standing real close to the screen door is a tall, ruddy-faced man wearing a golf shirt with some design on the pocket. And at the base of his corpulent neck is a gold chain with a little star on it. He runs his hand through his short reddish hair and good-humoredly asks, "Está papa?" My mom and dad are in the bedroom reading the paper while my brother and my sister fight over the comics. All of them sprawled on the same bed in what is our Sunday morning ritual. But out here, it's me and the man's benevolent smile. I like his watch, gleaming like a holy relic. I like his blue eyes, squinting against the sun to peer into the dark of our house. I tell him to wait, and I turn around and shout over the TV, "Mom, Dad, El Judío!" He blinks and blanches a little, never letting the smile teeter off his face. And then I see my mom come rushing out to grab me by the wrist and pull me into the kitchen with a mortified look. Then my dad, yanking his pants on and counting out some cash, takes my place at the door. A few words and a couple of bills are exchanged, my dad ending the whole thing with an earnest and apologetic gracias, both of them incapable of letting their eyes meet. Don't ever call him that, they tell me. That's not his name. His name is Senor Rubinsky. You got that? Malcriado. But that's what you call him, I protest. I hear you calling him the Jew all the time. That's none of your business, they fire back. He's Senor Rubinsky to you, David Rubinsky. ¿Entiendes? It turns out that David Rubinsky has loaned my dad some money to get him through our tough times. He's borrowed money from him for Christmas too, so we can get the bikes we plead and pray for. In fact, Senor Rubinsky has given countless low-interest loans to the many struggling Mexicans in the greasy spoon business and beyond. The local banks don't trust our dads much during these recession days. Why should they? When these so-called unaccountables might just default and disappear over the border. The loans of El Judío are the difference between making the house payment or not, buying groceries or not, getting new clothes for school or not. Whatever they say behind his back, their gratitude for his service is deep and authentic. He's well regarded among these families. When he dies, they will come to his funeral, their cars lined up for miles to pay their respects to him. It's ironic that all my varied and valued experiences with Jewish people began with the most pernicious stereotype, but we were stereotypes then too. Poor backwater Mexicans who had to borrow against their own futures to realize them. The following week, he's at the door again. This time, he's wearing a paisley tie over a damp white shirt. I meet him at the door and politely say, Mr. Rubinsky. His ruddy complexion turns redder still, and he looks at me like he's stung more by this salutation than by what I said the week prior. But then he pulls up his chin and confers on me the thinnest, drollest smile. Tell your papa that El Judío is at the door.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
That's cool.
No más, Octavio? No
Oh,
more?
I think anything else, I'll take too much time. I've taken enough.
Thank you. That was great. That was wonderful. So anyway, I'm thrilled that all of you got to hear these 5 new members. I think it, and just seeing your faces, frankly, I feel like I'm not so far away from Texas tonight.
All right.
And so I also feel energized like Octavio, just hearing these 5 new members read, just the stunning work. So good. And I'm glad I recorded it because now everybody else is going to enjoy it too. So thank you again for coming. And we're going to do it again 2 weeks from today, May 2nd, with 5 new member readings at the same time, 4 p.m. Central Time. So I'm going to end the meeting now, but thank you. And unless you guys want to chat amongst each other, I'll stay here.
Salud.
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 I got to go get my drink now.
Yeah.
So, and you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I'm going to add more logs to the fire and get some whiskey.
Hey, Sergio,
Right.
congratulations
Stay
to all the
warm.
new members.
Yeah. Congrats.
Bravo to all the new members.
Thank you.
Great.
It was so much fun and such a pleasure getting to meet all of you.
Yes,
Wow.
thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you in El Paso.
Pardon?
We'll see you next year in El Paso
All right. Maybe
for
some
the, meeting, right? Right,
Yeah,
Sergio?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, we
We'll
got
be
to.
there.
We got
Yeah.
to.
Yeah,
Meet at Cinco Puntos and
there we go.
other bookstores around there, Literarity, and
Yeah.
go to Las Cruces también.
And then maybe Steve will lead a hike into the mountains and come back.
Yeah, we can do that, of course.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Sounds like fun.
That's what we did the last time in El Paso.
I look forward to purchasing all your books. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, I'm going to
you.
end the meeting.
Bye.
Thank
Take care,
you so much,
Catherine. Great
Mario.
to see you. Catherine's calling in from Switzerland. Just wanted to tell everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful, Catherine.
There she is. I don't
Where?
know what time it is in Switzerland, but
Oh, there you are. Hello.
what time is it?
It's midnight.
It's midnight.
Oh, that's excellent. That's good.
Oh, you're a good sport staying up till midnight.
It's not typical. It was a wonderful reading. It was a wonderful reading. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
You guys.
Thanks, Sergio.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sergio.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.